Hello, everybody. Joining me today in this first conversation is Tina Terrian. Tina is a very good friend of mine. She is a law firm manager, business consultant, and human resources professional with over 25 years of professional experience. Tina serves as the executive director at Pirkey Barber, which is a law firm here in Austin. She oversees the firm's business operations, accounting, IT, docketing, marketing, human resources, and facilities departments. You'll hear her talk a lot about the hats that she wears professionally. Tina is a native Austinite who currently resides in the beautiful Texas Hill Country near Wimberley, I believe, with her family and enjoys spending as much time outdoors as possible. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this very broad conversation with my good friend, Tina Terrian.
Some kind of, like, we were talking about energy, right? Like, I'm growing something that is feeding either a soul or a person or even my own sense of, like, peace and relaxation. You know what it's like to garden.
Yes.
I need that. I need to pull things down to that level of simplicity right now, because the rest of the world is just like overwhelming, out of control.
Yeah.
There is no answer. There's no parents. I feel like there's no parents. Like,
That's a good point.
We need parents.
Where's the adult in the room?
There is no adult in the room.
Yeah,
there is no adult in the room. And this is what happens when you have an entire classroom full of children and no teacher.
What I really like about gardening, I'm not the gardener of the two of us. Ashton's much more the gardener.
Yeah.
But what I really appreciate about gardening is that it's something that you actively put your hands into.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it without getting your hands dirty. Mm-hmm. It has an outcome that is largely based on your input, but not exclusively based on your input.
Yep.
Stuff's going to happen that's outside of your control.
Yep.
And it can't be faked. There's an Arnold quote. We may have talked about this before, but there's an Arnold Schwarzenegger quote where he talks about how a physique is a thing that is true. It's honest because you can't borrow it.
Yeah.
No matter how much money you have, you can't buy it.
Yep.
When you see somebody with a good physique, you know they work their ass off to get that physique.
Yep.
Same thing with a garden.
Yeah.
You see somebody with a really
You get out of it what you put into it.
100%. And there's variables that are out of your control.
But nothing else really feels like that,
garden.
right, in the world right now. It doesn't feel like if you continue to put your energy into taking care of your family, into going to...
I totally agree. So we've talked about my brother before. I have a brother that's 6 years younger than me that's a Green Beret.
Yeah.
And in the course of his qualifying for that, they got through the qualifying course, and then he and a bunch of his buddies sat around a campfire and talked about what they went through in their qualifying. Have we talked about this before?
Mm-mm.
So this would have been, he's been doing that for 7 or 8 years, so it's been a while ago. When he got through his Q course, I think is what they call it, he and all of his now teammates sat around and talked about their experience and like what was the thing that got you through it, and at what point did your mental game turn into something that carried you through. You know, they're basically for 3 weeks they're getting tortured.
Yeah.
And having to just find a way to get through it. And every single one of these guys, to a man, talked about virtually the same thing, which was, I got to this point where I realized when I was getting out of control was when I was worrying about what the next step was going to be. And like, you're in your first couple of days and you know this thing's going to take 3 weeks. So you start to get lost in these things that are yet to come, and you forget that there's something that you're supposed to be doing right now. Mm-hmm. And for Sam, for my brother, he has about a 7-foot wingspan. He's a little taller than I am. And his concept that got him through was, there are things that I can physically put my hands on. If I put my arms out and I draw a circle, that's my sphere of influence. Anything outside of that circle is totally dead to me. Parents are dead, family's dead, stuff going on at home is dead, house projects, like all those things are not literally in my zone right now, so they get zero oxygen for me. And to me, when he told me that whole story, it seemed like such a good metaphor for where we are today, and specifically politically, because political stuff is so divisive to begin with.
And we feel helpless to change it. Like, there's nothing immediate that we can do, even
100%.
Our vote, that just changes where we're at.
All you have is your vote.
And it doesn't feel like enough right now.
It
does
never
not feel
does.
like, it feels very inadequate.
And you could probably make an argument that it's designed to, right? That you're designed to feel a little bit helpless. And that's okay, but this could very easily become a political discussion, and we don't want it to be. But during the COVID years, I remember that whole 2020 year really, really well. I don't think it was less panic-inducing or less weird or less extreme feeling than it is right now. In fact, I think it was 10x as extreme as it was then, or as it is now. When I look back on the things that got me through that time period, one of which was this concept of sphere of influence, taking things like political cycles and recognizing my ability to influence this, to actually put my hands on it, is walking into a voting booth, casting my vote, and walking out. Unless I'm willing to get involved, which I'm not. I got too much other shit on the plate. But unless I'm willing to go run for office and try to change it myself, I get one vote. So my input into being able to cast that vote confidently needs to be somewhat in line with what actual impact I can have.
Yeah.
So I'm still not positive what I'll do in November.
I don't think anybody is.
I don't think anybody is.
I don't think anybody feels like they have even a reasonable choice at this point. I've not talked to a single person
I haven't either.
who thinks there's a solution, who even has an idea what the solution would be.
Even my most staunch Republican type friends feel that way.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I don't know that I can do that again.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could cast that vote again.
Yeah.
But what I do know is when it becomes obvious to me which vote I'm going to cast, I will absolutely kill politics out of my life completely when I get to that point. Once I've reached that conclusion, there's no need for me to put any more energy into it because I know what I'm going to do, and I get that one vote, I'm going to cast it, and I'm going to bail, and I'm going to go back to living my life. And the beauty of living in the country, having a garden, being close to your family, and like preserving what's within your gates is it's a full-time job.
Yep.
That mixed with what you do for a living fills your day up if you're doing it right.
Yeah.
That's been your experience, right?
Well, yeah, and I mean, my full-time job is taking care of other people constantly, right? I mean, the executive director hat, the HR role, like it's just a lot of, speaking of energy, you know, I'm privy to all of the darkness, all of the things that people are going through in their lives that are hardcore, that are going to impact their ability to work or to function, or they need resources for benefits, or they need whatever. I know 6 months before we're going to fire somebody that we're going to fire them. And I still have to work with them. So like the emotional toll that takes on me because I am such a empath is heavy.
So you're very high EQ.
Very. Oh yeah, very high.
You have
My
an
IQ is
interesting
a lot
job.
higher than my IQ.
Okay, so in general, while we're doing this, I'm going to continue to ignore the fact that cameras are on.
Oh, I don't care.
But while we're doing that,
Okay.
I do think it's important to note who you are, what you do for a living, like what your job title is, how we know each other, all those things. So I'll introduce you.
Okay.
The interesting thing that you brought up there that prompted me to want to pause is that your job, you are executive director of the firm, which is equivalent how to like a practice administrator.
So I have more input and oversight to like full firm, like our future, like where we're headed.
Right.
I would consider myself like a non-partner business partner to the owners.
Your job is unique and challenging in that you have to be right-brained. Is right-brained the more EQ side?
I mean, you have to be right. You have to, have strength
have
in the
both.
equal, right? You have to
what
be
would-
analytical and ability to
business
do the
side.
business side, like review a budget and be able to tell, are we going to be able to make ends meet this year? Where can we
Right.
cut back money? Do we want to pull off some big software change this year? Do we want to wait? But then on the other side, it is like at the most fundamental level, it is just about
job.
humans and trying to make sure that they are able to, work in a way that supports the business.
Yeah, right. So you've been at the firm that you're at is called Pirkey Barber.
That is correct.
What's the practice specialty for Pirkey Barber?
Trademark.
Trademark.
Yeah. So
Patents
under the
too?
IP, nope, we don't do any patent work.
Just trademark.
And patent is a really different kind of sophisticated type of practice. And we've looked at adding maybe like a design patent piece to our practice, because a lot of our trademark work obviously involves logo design and color and all of those things.
Right.
But we specialize in trademark, and we work with companies from like local, tiny little startup Austin companies. Some of them make it big, like we work with Kendra Scott, so we can watch like a local company grow, which is exciting, and go from a small little mom and pop shop to a Kendra Scott.
Have y'all been with Kendra Scott the whole time?
We have been with Kendra Scott for a long time.
That's cool.
Tiff's Treats, we've been with since the very beginning.
Yeah.
One of our attorneys has worked with them. So, we get to see those kind of success stories, which is fun. But we also work with like some real heavy hitters. I mean, big, Amazon and Exxon and Johnson & Johnson, some big players. So,
What's better?
but their brand protection,
What's better? Is it better to start with a company when they're small and be with them through their growth story, or is it better to get the Amazon that calls you because of your specialty and
Well,
hires
and I
you
mean,
on the
Amazon started for us with Whole Foods. So that was in and of itself, right? Kind of like a starting off point for us. But I think our team gets equally excited about both, right? There's something really thrilling about being part of a big, giant organization and doing things like we recently had a win with Taco Bell. So we work with Yum Brands. Taco Bell was fighting for the right to use the Taco Tuesday mark. And
Is that a trademark?
we ended up freeing the mark so that everyone can use it because Taco Bell had originally wanted to use it in a commercial or advertising or something, and we had basically decided Taco Tuesday is such a common phrase. Like everybody should be able to use
That has to be, right?
So we freed the trademark.
Was it in conflict? Was there somebody that said they owned
There
it?
was, yeah. There was
Really?
a small restaurant owner up north somewhere that claimed that was their original.
Their idea.
Yeah.
How long
phrase.
have you been at Pirkey Barber now?
So I consulted with them for a year, left, and then came back full-time capacity. So I've worked with them for 10 or 11 years now.
But you've been in legal for quite a bit longer.
Been in legal for, almost 20 years.
Okay, so what I was trying to think of before we came in here and I could not place it was when we met for the first time. Because it's been longer. Live Oak's been around 10 years, so it's been a lot longer than that. Because we met at my last job, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, we met through Rex.
Through Rex Engelhart. That's right. So
It's
were
such
you
a
applying
small
to
world.
Rex's before?
Oh, yeah.
You
yeah,
were?
I had known Rex for a long time. And I think I had worked with him maybe even outside of legal before I came into legal.
What did you do before?
Worked for Civil Engineering Group.
Okay.
So I was in engineering before that and banking, always in human resources, executive management. Like that was
Yeah,
always
yeah.
my shtick.
Were you at Big Red Dog before then?
No, but my husband
Your
was.
husband was at Big Red
Yeah,
Dog. I
so
knew there
Chance was an owner at Big Red Dog, and then they sold to WGI.
Gotcha. So how did you go from that world, civil engineering, into legal to begin with? Do you remember the pivot?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was a big transition.
Was it just like, I need a job, I need to get out of this job's available, I'll take it?
I
Or
wanted to, I mean, at
you
the time
targeting
I was
legal?
still young. I had tons of energy, and I wanted to I would get
You're
into.
still young. You're in your 40s.
I would get
for another
into a
couple days.
job and figure it out and then get bored. And so it was another challenge for me. It was something I hadn't done before, and I was super excited about they needed a lot of things done. They hadn't had an employee handbook or, I don't know, they had a lot of internal things that needed to be sorted. And I just loved it. I wasn't sure how I would do working with attorneys, but I love working with an entire team of type A people. Because anyone, I mean, you're talking from receptionist to senior Lou Pirkey of Pirkey Barber, everyone in that system in a law firm, they are all very, very much perfectionists. Very smart people. Everyone wants to do a good job. They want to do it right. They don't want to make mistakes. And that kind of constantly striving for perfection is not something you find in a whole lot of other industries.
But you're wired that way yourself?
And I'm wired that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the hardest thing?
From a work standpoint, I'm wired that
Yeah.
way.
So what problems are created by everybody at the firm being wired that way?
Well, I think that's where I can provide some balance because I definitely have a foot planted kind of firmly in both worlds.
Yeah. Where you have to pull people back.
I'm able to, I am the epitome of middle management, right?
Yeah.
I'm able to play that middle role just back and forth. And
Yeah.
that includes, taking people away from the edge of the cliff every once in a while and saying, let's just slow down a little bit. Let's take
Pump
it
the
back a
brakes.
notch. Or it's okay that word was misspelled. It's not gonna, it's not gonna be a big deal. But just kind of reminding people we still have humans doing the work. It's not computers. It's,
Yeah.
we're going to make some little mistakes and that's okay. But I don't know. I mean, it's incredibly rewarding.
What
It's
firm were
incredibly
you at
rewarding.
before Pirkey?
So I worked for a bunch of different firms when I consulted, a bunch of little law firms all over Texas. And then the other kind of bigger firm that I was with was Armbrust and Brown, a real estate group.
I don't know why I thought you were at Bickerstaff. Who was at Bickerstaff?
My former CPA, Chris Sims.
Chris Sims.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's probably where we met. If you've only been at Pirkey for 10 years, then we met when you were at your previous firm.
We met when I was at my previous firm.
Through an ALA event, probably.
Yes. And then when I got involved with B2 doing legal consulting,
Right.
then I worked with you a bunch because we were placing.
Right.
You were, and then that's right so we were working together on machine placement, basically.
Right.
And then you struck out on your own.
Struck out on my own.
And I thought you were amazing, and I wanted to support you in whatever you did. And so we kept in touch, and I
That's on camera.
pitched you some.
You think I'm amazing.
We pitched you to a bunch of clients we were working with at the time when you got Live Oak started, and then
Then we had the happy hour lunch meetings with Scott Bateman and
Yep.
a couple other people were involved.
Well, there were a
in that
bunch
too.
of us that were all around the same age, kind of within our 10 to 15 year span, all kind of at similar places in our career, all working for these, startup businesses, and all we would get together for happy hour and kind of support each other and talk through ideas and client contacts and how we could help each other out and all that.
So you would have been already at Pirkey when Live Oak started.
Probably, yeah. I was probably consulting with them. I was probably not working for them as an employee, but
B2.
consulting through B2.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, so I do remember that you were at Pirkey, or you were at B2 when I first started. Huh. Okay, so then do you remember the very first time that we engaged in formal discussions between Live Oak and Pirkey?
I do.
Do you remember what the result was?
I do.
Let's talk about that.
Okay. So we were with, I don't remember who we were with. Should I name names?
Let's not name competitor
Okay.
names.
So we were with
This would have been like 2015, 2016 probably.
we were with a relatively well-known IT outsourced support group. At that time, we had no internal IT at all. We had, I think, promoted a college kid that was working as our file clerk, and he was doing desktop support. It was awful. And we started growing really rapidly. So we knew we needed to get away from them. We hired a different group. We were with them for a few years.
Yeah.
But during that process, we interviewed with y'all.
So y'all selected
So y'all were one of, I don't know, whatever we ended up, maybe 7 or 8 people we talked to, and then we kind of narrowed it down to a few, and y'all were in that final round.
And what happened?
At the time, so law firms are sort of known for stability. They are also known for really, really wanting to know what other law firms do. That's always the first question. What do other law firms do? If we want to add a benefit, if we want to change a service, what do other law firms use? What do they say about this? How do they handle this? So at the time, y'all just hadn't been around long enough. There wasn't an established history, and the move made us nervous. So we ended up going with a group that had a few more years in the field.
Quite a few more years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a hard call, but
I remember when that happened.
I made it. We talked it through. I feel like I was pretty honest with you.
You were very honest with me, and I remember doing an exit interview there where you broke the news to us that we weren't getting the business. And I remember, what my overwhelming feeling on it was?
Were you surprised?
Relief.
Really?
Total relief.
Oh, I figured you would have been
No, because we had the friendship already.
Yeah.
That I valued.
Yeah.
And I knew where we were as a company. And I knew, okay, if we end up getting this deal, we will make this work. This will become my sole focus until we know that it's going to work.
Yeah.
But it might not work.
Yeah.
We're in our infancy.
Yeah.
You guys 2 years in.
It was very, very
year and a
early
half
on.
in.
Yeah, very
It was
early
when my co-founder was still a part of it.
Yep.
Because he was in the meeting in y'all's conference room.
Yep.
You weren't where you are now, though. Y'all were over.
No, we were downtown, 6th and Congress.
Proper
hot
downtown.
spot right downtown.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I remember that well. And I remember feeling relief, but I remember also having in the back
so
of my
funny.
mind. It's a complicated dynamic when you're doing business with somebody that you consider to be a friend. And our prerequisite was friendship. It was not, we didn't have a business relationship.
Yeah.
We had a friendship first.
Yeah.
And so looking at our customer base, I can probably count on one hand the amount of friends that are also customers. I kind of try to avoid it if I can.
Sure.
Just mixing the two doesn't always end
Yeah.
up with something good.
Yeah.
But it was a deal that in the back of my mind I thought there's going to come a day when they're not going to be happy with the firm that they're with, because I knew what was going on behind the scenes
Right.
of that company.
Right.
They had tried to buy us.
Right.
And I just figured at some point it's going to shift. I'll be having a conversation with Tina. She'll bring us in at that point, and then we can figure out, okay, are we in a better position to provide support now?
Yeah.
So then fast forward to, when did we engage with y'all in the first place?
It was before COVID.
I thought it was pre-COVID.
And it was right. It was shortly after we got settled. So we built out a new space, and we
the
got
east side.
moved to the new space.
Yeah.
Signed a 10-year lease, because at the time that was what you did to get space downtown. 10-year lease. And
It was a fresh build, right?
had just built out shelf space. So much fun.
Was it a
whole
new building?
process.
Were y'all the
Brand new
first tenant?
building.
I
Brand
thought
new
so.
building. There was a tech company that was technically the first tenant, but we're still there, and most of the other folks are not in that building now, have changed out. So
Yeah.
yeah, and we
COVID.
got to build a brand new space. We had been in a really dated, like built in the 80s. Everything was beige and
Yeah.
old
Wood paneling.
Yeah, attorney furniture that was all that
Yeah.
cherry wood, big, giant,
gloss.
oversized,
Yeah. Yeah.
with
big
matching
leather chairs.
bookshelves and filing cabinets. And
Were there painted pictures of the founders of the firm? in
there were
your
not.
lobby?
We never. Luckily, no.
I have been into a law firm recently, big law firm, one that you would know the name of, and you walk in and the whole vibe of the firm is new.
Yeah.
But then you go in the conference rooms and there's the pictures of the patriarchs on the
Sure.
wall, like the standing and all formal posed and
Yep.
hand painted pictures of the founders of the firm.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a relic. So that would have been 2018, 2019, probably.
Yeah. 2019.
So tell me about your experience with us from the jump. Like the situation had changed from when we had first talked to y'all.
Well, my
'Cause you had
gosh.
brought somebody internally.
Yes, the situation had changed. We had essentially, we had an incredibly devoted employee, Chantal, who had been with us forever. And she had done everything. I mean, she'd worked in accounting. She knew all of our processes because she'd actually had her hands in there. She knew all of our
She wasn't hired for IT.
all of our products because she had actually used them and worked with them. She had a bachelor's degree that was in a related field. Her husband is also kind of an engineering nerd. And that is just her makeup. And I don't even remember, honestly, how it came about, except that she had expressed an interest in doing that and learning it. We needed somebody, and I trusted her implicitly. So she took that on and she ran with it, and she's done an amazing job. I
Yeah.
mean, she's our IT manager now.
What was she hired for originally? Was it accounting?
She was hired probably when the
bookkeeping?
office was less than 10 people. And I think they brought her into accounting department. But at the time, they were super small. And so I think she also did like all their HR paperwork and their employee onboarding and she just kind of helped with anything.
So she was already kind of in that admin
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
IT was a void that she felt like she could fill.
Yep.
Yeah, she's a person that I may try to drag in here and talk to as well.
Yeah.
If she wouldn't be uncomfortable doing it.
No.
Because the relationship that we have with her is a unique one. You know, we have like 110 customers now, some odd. The majority of those, there is no Chantal.
Yeah.
We are the IT department.
Yeah.
Working with an IT manager it's a very delicate tap dance. It never was with Chantal because she knew why we
But
were
it
there.
can be.
God, it can be, especially if it's not the IT manager's idea.
Yeah.
That we're there.
Yeah.
And usually it's not. Usually we're brought in by leadership, introduced to the IT manager, and just told like go play well together.
Well, we brought y'all in at such a critical time because it was not only when like Chantal was still kind of learning her job. We had just been through this giant office move and she'd done all of the technology planning for the new space.
Right.
All of the audio visual planning for the conference rooms and all of that. And but we were ready now that the move was behind us. We were ready to start tackling like big picture stuff, looking at our policies, looking at A lot of our larger clients do annual IT surveys that they want us to complete. We were starting to get a flood of those. A lot of like regulations and things that we needed to make sure we were compliant with.
Right.
And I wanted Chantal to have more time to do that and not spend all day running around, you know, helping people reset their password or, you know, their printer settings not working. So,
Right. You wanted her focused on firm business, not IT ops.
but she had no background. And so when we talked to y'all, I mean, one of the biggest reasons is because we had, well, for one, I trusted you. I trusted that whatever you were doing and whoever was working for you was going to have the same kind of approach to taking care of us. And there was a unique ask, if you remember, which was to really help bring Chantal along. I wanted Chantal to be super successful, but she didn't have anybody else in IT to talk to and bounce ideas off of. And, you know, I mean, I could pull a copy of another firm's IT policy from a friend or something, but it didn't explain to her, why are all these things in place? What do we need to have to prepare for the next year? What things are coming down the pipeline? And really just how to think about things from a bigger picture organizational standpoint. We were also expanding, and then everything just moved fast. We were expanding into multiple states. We had people working from all over the place. We would not have survived without y'all.
The interesting thing about that you're bringing up is that IT sort of sits on an island by itself in any business. If there's internal IT, those people are on their own island. They speak their own language.
Yep.
They're a supporting role, so they touch every department, but they're an isolated department. And they're not a core function of that business, whether it's law, whether it's consumer goods, nonprofits, like they're there as a administrative supporting function for every other department.
Right.
And when you have somebody who is solo in that department, they don't have a mentor on staff. They don't have any sort of a training program. They don't know what, if any, advancement opportunities there are or how they can get better at their job. Because even an HR manager or an executive director who wears the HR manager hat, how do you mentor a IT person when you're not an IT person?
No, I mean, we would be sitting there at night, at 8 o'clock at night, online, both of us on our laptops, working on some security questionnaire for some giant client we have. And the security questionnaire is like 25 pages long. And we're literally Google searching terms.
What does this mean?
What does this mean? What are they talking about? They want us to have this in place. What does that look like? And, well, we just didn't want to take, it's a law firm. We don't want to take any risks. So the other thing was we've got to make sure that we're answering this correctly and we're legally compliant. Clearly, we've outgrown our current skill set. We need help.
What do you think? I don't want to ask you to put words in Chantal's mouth, but put words in her mouth. If she were to classify how the relationship has gone, what do you think she would say?
Oh, I mean, she would not still be standing if we didn't have y'all. I mean,
do you know who she works with?
The level of support that she's had. Well, Hal is like our person. I know she works with a lot of folks, though. I mean, she works. I know she's got kind of her people that she can reach out to directly. Hal's just kind of our favorite.
Hal's the go-to.
We want Hal to do everything all the time. But yeah.
Okay, so
we signed y'all right before COVID, and that's when the world went
changed.
Crazy.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I wrote down 10 questions, and probably 3 of them have to do with the COVID era.
Okay, what you got?
So talk about May 2020. World's getting locked down, having to send everybody home.
Yeah.
What was that like? Do you remember it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll never forget it. I mean,
how did you find out about it? Or like, when did you first go, oh, this is something to take seriously?
So oddly enough, I'm involved with an organization called Association of Legal Administrators. We had our spring retreat or something like that. We hadn't had one in years. Everyone was super excited. We did a cruise out of Galveston. And we were all on the cruise ship when all the news was coming in that all of this was hitting. So it had been sort of in the news leading up to the cruise ship, but I can still remember us making jokes about it. Like, oh, gee, somebody's got the sniffles. Oh, I hope we don't have COVID on the... It was just not taken seriously.
While you were on the ship.
This was a week before we shut the office down.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So I look back
I've never
on
heard
it
this
now.
story, so
I
tell
look
me.
back on it now and I think, wow, what happened in the time between I literally got off the boat, got home, and then just the whole world changed. And then we were just it was a crazy pace. We all of a sudden, within 7 days, we were looking at basically having to close the entire office. We had at that time, a large percentage of our employee population that didn't even have laptops. They were on desktop, big giant
Under your desk.
desk. I remember us having to buy special cradles when we got our modern furniture. So having to pivot to all of a sudden supporting everyone working from home, I mean, it was just a wild time. And at the time we thought we're closing the office for a few weeks, but we want everybody to keep working. We'll see y'all soon.
Yeah. We'll be right back.
And little did we know, we ended up being closed for the most part for 2 years. We allowed our staff to work remotely
Keeping
and
the
did not
office closed.
require that they come into the office for 2 years.
Yeah. When you first found out about it, I guess the severity of it, that things were going to lock down. You were on the ship. You were on a cruise ship.
Yeah, I was on a
What were
cruise ship.
people saying? Were y'all all planning for here's what we're going to do when we go back home?
No, not at all. There were none of those discussions because at that point in time, we did not believe that it was going to impact anything. We thought, here is this crazy virus. We've had these things before. There's been an avian bird flu. There's been a
Swine flu.
whatever, mad cow disease. All these weird things that have popped up. We thought it would just be another one of those.
Yeah.
There's a lot of press about it, but it's going to turn out to be nothing.
And then did you start to plan for what you were going to do when you got home while you were on the boat, or when you get off?
Conversations started seriously in the car. There was a group of us that rode down to Galveston together, and the conversation started in the car when we got back.
Yeah.
And then, of course, all the news starts coming out where people are on cruise ships and they're stuck.
Right.
They're stuck for a month,
Yeah, you could have been worse.
We could have been stuck on a cruise
in
ship.
port. Golly. Okay, so you come back home. You make the decision how quickly thereafter that you're going to shut the office down, like the next week.
It went very, very fast. And we were not planning on, I did not want to keep anyone, no one in management wanted to keep people there longer than they had to be there. Really within just a few days, I don't know if things just started happening very quickly.
I remember it well.
So, it was just wild.
Were you worried for the business, existentially?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure.
Tell me about that.
A lot of companies were struggling. We weren't sure, are our clients going to be okay? That's our bread and butter, right? That's where we get all of our income is from our clients. And all of a sudden, every major kind of business in the world is being impacted. Supply is being impacted. Availability is being impacted of staff because we've got people that are out sick. You've got all this talk at the government level about different regulations, different rules that you have to follow as an employer. I can remember drafting letters for our facilities team in case they got pulled over. Because remember, there was a period of time where you weren't allowed to even be on the road driving.
Something that showed you were an essential
That had to show
business.
you were an essential business.
Yeah, we had to do the same thing with our people that were going on site.
Yep. Just in case they got pulled over or stopped, they could prove that they were required to go in.
That added a weird layer of complexity for us too, because if we had an issue where, we had a customer that has a physical office, had a physical server in that office, and the server went down. Well, the only way for us to go diagnose what's going on with that server is to be looking at it physically.
Sure.
But then we had to figure out, okay, what are our requirements for PPE, for protective equipment?
Yep.
What do we do for liability sake?
Yep.
If we ask an employee to go into somebody's office and they catch COVID there, are we liable for that? So we ended up, for the first probably month, anything that required an on-site was one of our leadership team that went on-site.
Yeah.
I was there for a lot.
Because you didn't know what you could do, who you could,
know.
you don't want to send your people
I'll
into
take
a
the risk if need be.
Yeah.
But then, I think pretty quickly thereafter we figured out kind of what our policy would be until further notice.
Yeah.
So do you remember, I remember thinking through, okay, how could this impact us? We obviously had the same circumstance where if it impacts our customers, it's going to impact us.
Right.
Was there a turning point for you where you recognized or where you felt reasonably sure, all right, we're going to be fine?
I would say it took about 6 months. We needed to know that the world was going to be okay at that point too. It's what is happening with our economy? What's happening with, if this is truly a deadly virus, are we going to end up with 50% of the people that we started this with? That was a legitimate concern at the time.
Totally.
We didn't know enough about it. So are we gonna end up operating with half the people we've worked with this whole time? We just didn't know.
Yeah.
But I would say about 6 months in, it started to become routine, and we couldn't stop looking at the future. We had to keep planning and keep kind of putting one foot in front of the other. And so at some point we had to get back to hiring and doing RFPs and looking for work and just keep going. And we weathered it. We were really, really lucky. We weathered it very well.
When did people start going back into the office, even like in a limited capacity?
About 6 months.
Did you allow people to go back in before
We did. We allowed people to go. No, we did not. No,
So
the
for
office was
6 months, it was
closed down.
closed,
You were not
closed.
allowed to come in.
Gotcha.
And I mean, these are rough timelines, but after about 6 months, it was pretty critical. We kept our facilities team going in so we could have mail. We could process checks.
Right.
We had so many manual processes. It's funny to look back on now.
Yeah.
We were not prepared. Now it's like we've been working remotely our whole lives.
Was it a good thing in that respect?
100% it was a good thing.
Talk to me about that, because what I found with a lot of people I talk to is that there's things that they learned during the COVID era about where their business was inefficient, where there were things that had dependencies on boots on the ground. The good thing about COVID was that it was a forcing function. Like, you don't have a choice now. If you want to continue to operate, you're going to have to do these things.
Yep.
So what happened during those 6 months, during the first year, that you would say had a lasting impact on the firm, where even if, things go back to normal, here we are 4 years later.
Just so many things. I mean, our entire accounting function changed because we were still sending, we were mailing invoices. It sounds so archaic to say it now, but I mean, we were still like stuffing envelopes and mailing checks. I mean, we were depositing, we had somebody that would run to the bank once a week and deposit checks. Most businesses did not have e-check submission like we do on our phones or whatever. It just was not, now everybody does it.
Right.
So we had to get a special machine for scanning. We had to get scanners for our facilities. We had to start scanning to deliver mail. All of those processes changed.
What about the working from home piece?
We also, that first year of COVID, we were also in the middle of changing 401k plans, rolling out an entire new time and billing software for our firm, and moving to an all electronic document management system. And all of those three things were in the works when COVID hit. And we had to finish the implementation and training while everyone was remote. So all of those things forced us into, we did not have any more paper files. They went away. We did not have, everything was stored electronically. We were exchanging documents electronically. Law firms are notorious for, red ropes and bankers' boxes full of files. And
that's why Iron Mountain exists.
That's right.
Yeah, cold storage for old docs.
So, I would say, almost every single one of our administrative processes was touched.
Yeah.
And is better for it.
Is better for it.
Is better for it.
Yeah, growing pains are kind of a natural result of that, right?
Once we got our most senior attorneys used to using Zoom, I was like, if they can do it, anyone can do it.
That's it.
And
that
actually, it can be kind of fun.
It was that you had these old stodgy people that don't want to change for anything, and now you just took their choice.
Everybody just had to embrace. myself included.
Yeah,
I can remember thinking, I could never manage the office remotely. I had moved to Wimberley, and I had wanted to start taking maybe one day a week where I didn't have to do the commute.
Yeah.
And I thought, I could never do that. I could never work remotely on Fridays. The whole office is going to be chaos. No one's going to be able to survive without me. So I was one of the worst offenders. And then just, we all had to pivot during COVID.
Did you think at that time that it was just like a novelty that it will go back to normal? Or how quickly into it did you recognize, okay, this has fundamentally altered the way that we're going to do business?
I think really a full year in, when we had started hiring employees where we could find them, we really started tapping into some exceptional talent because we were able to pick up an amazing docketing person in Georgia, a paralegal in Ohio or in Detroit, or, we started being able to find really, really good talented people that maybe didn't live near our Austin office.
And now you didn't need them to.
And now we didn't need them to.
Right.
And all of our processes, but trying to get through that, like how do we make these processes make sense to have a more remote workforce? But as we started accumulating those people, I think we realized this is where we're headed.
Mm-hmm.
We are headed towards, a global or at least national employment force.
Yeah. Less dependency on boots on the ground.
Yeah. Location is not so essential.
Yeah, I think for most businesses that's the case, right? Unless you have to be for,
Sure.
HVAC or plumbing or things where you
Right.
need people, where people have to be there in person. Yeah, so talk about, at some point in the course of those 4 years, y'all had a new office open. Mm-hmm. Talk about that a little bit. What was the thing that perpetuated that?
We were ready for something fresh. We wanted some new space. We were looking at, like all businesses, trying to do something that was more fiscally responsible. Staying right downtown Austin was getting unreasonably expensive.
This is your move from Sixth
Oh, I
and
thought that's what
Congress
you were
to-
asking
well,
about, the
that,
office
but I
move?
also want to know about the office that you opened out of state.
So
Because that was a relatively recent thing, wasn't it?
well, no. So so we have an office up in Tyson's Corner, Virginia, just outside of DC.
Yeah.
And we actually merged with a small firm that was up there. It was a 3-person firm. All of our attorneys had a long history of working together previously at other firms. So they were what we would call friends of the firm. And we ended up merging with that group. And then that kind of kicked off that office.
This is when?
That was, 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay, so that was pre-COVID.
Mm-hmm. That was
Probably
pre-COVID.
some lessons you learned there that applied to the COVID adjustments, huh? Managing people that are in disparate
Yeah, oh yeah,
offices
for sure.
anyways.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what happens, you may not be able to talk about this, but we can always cut it out. If you sign a 10-year lease
Yeah.
on a really nice office space, and you do all the tenant improvements, you make it perfectly for your staff, and then the world changes, and now all of a sudden, these people really don't need to be in this big office space anymore. You've got 6 years, 5-6 years left until this becomes something you have to be concerned with.
Right.
How do you weigh that? What to do next?
I mean, it's, rent and operating a business in downtown Austin, rent is one of your biggest costs. It's like payroll and benefits. It is just one of your top expenses. And you start rethinking that. Does it make sense for us to be putting all of that money into rent? And how often are we utilizing our space? And how many people are physically in there? I think a lot of businesses have just moved to like trying to sublet their space. Law firms, little more stability, little less willing to give up a physical location altogether. So we'll ride out the lease in Austin for sure. But we are giving up our Tyson's office this year.
Oh, really?
So that lease is up at the end of, September, October. And we are actually going to close that office. We've got 9 people up there. And over the last year, we've just seen that people would prefer to work from home.
Yeah. What is the function of the office? What role does the office play now that it didn't pre-COVID? Does it change the way people work when they're in the office?
It does.
Yeah.
Certainly for me, on the days when I'm physically in the office, there's a need for a lot more face-to-face time, a lot of those connections and things that we're trying to do to kind of just keep people connected and close and fostering those relationships which contribute to our culture. All of that is happening in the workspace.
Yeah. Seems like people are less married to the idea of their desk.
Yeah.
than they
Oh,
used to be.
absolutely. And attorneys especially, right? I mean,
Right.
what a quick transition from like needing the corner office with room for a couch and a table and to everybody being basically in a small kind of postage stamp space. Same furniture.
Yeah. You care less about it being your space.
Yeah.
It's a little more like a coffee shop working environment now.
Yeah, for sure.
So you think you need less space at the end of that whole
Less space, except that lawyers and law firms in general just still very much want windowed offices.
Yeah.
So I don't know that that'll ever go away.
Yeah.
I mean, that is really just a prestige and sort of status thing that contributes to how people view us.
Yeah. It frames meetings well too when you're looking at somebody face to face.
Yeah.
If you have the opportunity to look at them face to face.
Yeah.
And you can do it in a conference room with a door that closes, where it's quiet, where you've got good natural light, you've got comfortable chairs, you're sitting across a table from somebody. It just sort of frames the professionalism of the discussion a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of puts you in, it's like the sound bed that we did coming into here.
Yeah.
Like it just sort of kicks you
Sets
into
the
that
tone.
mindset a
Yeah, sure.
little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you are coming up on a birthday.
Yes.
You're going to work. If you had to forecast now, how much longer are you going to work professionally? If you had your druthers.
I am definitely probably in the majority right now, where a lot of people that I know that are my age, kind of mid 40s to mid 50s, there were so many crazy, challenging, and really in a lot of ways catastrophic losses during COVID. A lot of bad things happened during COVID. But the ability to have time to reconnect with our families and kind of really reframe our whole lives happened during COVID. And as a woman who's a mom and also an executive and has working full time and also trying to be super mom and all of those things, it really brought home like how important it is just to spend time with family and how much I don't want to just keep working at the same pace. So I think a lot of us that were kind of in that rat race, every single night we had client events, happy hours, professional things to go to, entertainment, weekends full. We were able to step away from all that and kind of lean into the lack of activity, not having plans 24/7. I would say for every year I work, it's one less year that I want to work. And so at some point I thought I would make it to, I always thought I would retire at 70, and then it kind of pushed to 65. I'll get out as soon as I can. I will get out of working full time, especially in the intensity of a law firm.
Yeah.
I'll jump ship on that as soon as I'm financially able to do so.
So when you say as soon as I can,
I
it's
probably got 10 years.
financially-
I probably got 10 years.
It can't be exclusively financially. Obviously, the financial
It's
element
not.
of it is
It's
part
not.
of it.
Well, the other thing
What are
too
the
is
other
it's a
criteria?
growing firm. I have an amazing, I call it it's Tina's dream team. We have been able to build the most exceptional group of employees and attorneys. We have a very, very unique thing going. And it's something that I personally believe in really, really wholeheartedly, that we can practice law and be good people at the same time. We can have these intense type A, historically ego-driven personalities that are really genuinely smarter than the rest in the room. We can do that, and we can still be good humans, and we can still be kind to each other. And so I will want to make sure that the firm is in good shape. And I will want to make sure my
Yes.
staff is taken care of.
Talk
And
about that piece of it. So you have check boxes financially for, like, I can retire when this box is checked.
Yeah.
What will be the boxes to check where you'll know, like, okay, now this is in good hands, or this person's going to be taken care of? Are there things initiatives you're wanting to take on that would lead to that? Or is it just that's so
No,
far in
that's
the
all I
future,
think
I'm not
about.
thinking
It's really all I think about. So
It's almost like succession planning.
it
in a
is.
way.
Yeah. And I know, I'm discovering that no one really wants my job, which is fine.
That's called job security.
We'll have to bring somebody in from the outside to do it. But yeah, I think just making sure that there's other really good leadership in place. To a large extent, I kind of carry the heart of the firm, like the touchy-feely stuff. And that needs to be better distributed so that other folks are kind of carrying that energy in the office as well. Making sure that we've got a really good kind of competent managing partner that's able to take the firm where it wants to go. But to a large extent, I'm working to make the other people's dreams come true, right? It's their dream, it's their vision, and my job is to make that happen. So making sure that they're comfortable, they're in good shape. We've got somebody lined up that's going to be able to take care of things for them. And training up people under me. I think a big part of what I've been trying to do is empower people like Chantal to learn everything they can and grow in their role, and then really just hand things off and let people kind of excel. And the more of that we can do, the better prepared I'll feel to step away, that other people will have things kind of have the basics covered.
So to what extent has that become part of your hiring criteria? Like, are you looking for that in people that you're hiring for the firm? That sort of self-starting, they want to own their thing that they're working on. Is it something you try to screen for? Or are there roles where it doesn't matter, you don't have to have that?
There's roles where it doesn't matter, and largely a law firm is flat. Its org structure is flat. So if you get like in a typical corporation, let's take an HR position, for example. You come out of college and you're an HR generalist and you go and you work as somebody's assistant. If you work for a corporation, you've got 20 different roles you could take on over time. You could work for bigger organizations, take on more, bigger departments, bigger responsibilities. You can go from a corporation with 10 people to a corporation with 1,000. In a law firm, it's much more flat. There's just not that many opportunities to climb a ladder because there's not a ladder between coming in as a receptionist and becoming a partner.
Right.
You specialize in law or you manage the office function. So there's not that same trajectory. So I wouldn't say a screen for it because it almost is a little more complicated if somebody comes in with some personal drive to do a whole lot, but there's places where we can feed it. And if we get good people that have that drive, then I want to get them in the right seat to continue to be challenged, to continue to make stuff happen.
It's also virtually impossible to screen for it, I think. Because you're sitting with somebody in an interview and you're asking them about themselves.
Yeah. They're going to give you all the best things.
They're going to tell you how much initiative they have,
Yeah.
how they're driven to succeed,
Yeah.
and you never know until they're hired whether or not they actually
That's
have
why
what
I
you
think
thought you did.
references, honestly, in my own personal professional bucket, references are bullshit. It's a complete waste of time because you're literally looking
only
for
gonna give
people
you
that
the
are
good
only
ones.
going to say nice things.
Yeah.
It doesn't really generally give you a whole lot of insight to what you're really going to get.
Talk about the HR function. What have you seen? You've been doing HR for how long?
Oh, for my whole life, pretty much.
So
I feel like I've been doing
your
HR my whole life.
professional-
My whole
your
professional career.
professional life. How have you seen the HR job function change in ways that are positive that you would stand behind, or in ways that are negative that you disagree with?
I think because it is such a litigious society that people tend to put policy over people. And you really see that especially in big organizations. I think that there is a very good way to do both, but that takes some insight to what, to playing out what could happen in different scenarios and how things could land, and also having a reasonably good judge of character. Is this the kind of person that I want working with me as a teammate, or is this the kind of person that is not going to fit in for some reason and could eventually give me trouble?
Yeah.
I think there's not, for a long time, it used to be people went into HR because they liked people. They go into HR because they love people and they want to help people, and that's really great. And you do have the opportunity to do that sometimes, which is awesome and very fulfilling. But so much of HR now is just regulations. It is rules, regulations, policy handbooks, forms, documents, making sure that all of that is checked. And I think people lose track of the fact that we're working with humans. And so knowing that you are going to have to shift depending on what's happening in their personal lives, you don't want it to bleed into work, but there's no way for it not to. We're talking human beings that have
Dealing with
full
people.
lives, that have other things happening.
Yeah.
So
Does the regulation thing change over time?
it does. I always joke that I'm a diehard Democrat until we elect one, because then all of the policies change.
Yeah.
They're so darn concerned about taking care of people that all of a sudden we have, the Affordable Care Act and a bunch of
Yeah.
other things to police.
You're a Democrat until you elect one. Yeah, it makes your job a little more complicated.
Every time there's an election, there's big pivot and big, always lots of social policy changes and changes with regulations and things. And so generally whenever there is a change between Democrat and Republican in office, either direction, you're going to have a whole run of
that
changes.
pendulum's going to swing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to stay, you have to stay
this year
educated.
has some changes coming potentially.
This year has some big changes coming.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's gotten, exponentially more complicated is that we have people in now 15 states. And trying to track employment law in 15 states is really challenging.
How do you do that?
I mean,
Or
we have
do
to
you do
start
that?
by checking off the big things. Do they have the same overtime laws? Do they have the same policies with when I have to issue a last check? You know, you look at those workman's comp. Do I cover them under my policy, or is there a state policy we have to do? Other than that, it's largely situational. You wait until something comes up, and then you make darn sure you are handling it according to that state's laws.
Yeah. Learn it as you go kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something you've helped us with quite a bit outside of the Live Oak Pirkey Barber IT relationship, is
Yeah.
that this won't surprise you. I'm not a huge HR person. I don't follow the guidelines that you should be following for
Sure.
a proper HR department.
Sure.
It's been an afterthought because the things that we've had to worry about in the last 10 years are a full-time job to worry about.
Yeah.
But there have been times where we have an employee that we need to part ways with, and there's some particularities around it that we just need to be careful about. So
Yeah.
you've been a good sounding board for those kind of things where we can just say, here's the situation, here's what we've done thus far, here's what we have notes written down on, what else do we need to do to make sure that we're covered here? How much does that landscape evolve where it's having to consume part of your mental energy just to stay up to speed on it?
I mean, I've been doing it long enough that it doesn't worry me like it used to. I mean, I used to, when I was younger, feel like I had to be constantly reading periodicals and watching the news and just waiting for changes, attending conferences, going to. Now I feel like you kind of are able to read through it very quickly and say, this applies to our industry or it doesn't, our size or it doesn't. This is likely to come up or it's not. And then what do we need to put in place? Do we need to add a policy to our manual? Okay, fine, that box is checked. Does it impact our day-to-day practice? It doesn't. And it's not as big of a deal as it used to be.
Yeah.
But the multi-state thing, you always worry, am I handling things properly per that state's guidelines or that, in California, it's county. They have county
regulations.
leave policies for parental leave and things that are different depending on what county your employees are residing in. So it can get complicated really fast. Y'all are easy to work with and support because you're good people and you always want to do the right thing legally and take care of people.
Yeah. Sometimes those things work in concert with each other. Sometimes they're directly opposed to each other.
Sure.
So it's also like understanding the circumstance and knowing, okay, here's what we can do. We don't necessarily need to go that far.
Yeah.
We can probably be a little bit more kind-hearted and do things this way. And they are case by case. It's not like you can apply one policy across the board, right?
You can't.
I've got a grandpa that was an executive at a big nonprofit, and he used to talk about how everything they did was process-driven, policy-driven. But that he had this rule amongst his staff that you should never let a bad policy get in the way of a good decision. And with HR stuff, there's a lot of like easy things to say, we can do it this way. We could just totally fire this person and get rid of them and not feel bad about it tomorrow. But it's not taking that person into account. So kind of have to soften.
Well, and I won't give any names or share any specifics, but I will say that there was a situation last year that I encountered where an employee made a really, really big mistake. And I was on the fence, I don't know if you remember this or not, about what to do, and really torn between what I felt like I probably should do under the circumstances versus what I wanted to do to get this person over this mistake and out the other end of it and have learned something from it. And you are the one that helped me with that because I called you just to talk it through. Having the ability to do that with other folks, I think, is so essential.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's not one set of rules applies to every person. You have to step back
Yeah.
and say, just look at the whole picture. What is it going to cost me to lose this person? What knowledge does this person have that no one else has?
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think you said, you're going to end up with sort of a training moment. That mistake is never going to be made again.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have the loyalty of someone that you have helped through this situation.
I remember that conversation. Because whatever it ends up costing the firm, that mistake can be looked at as a giant mistake, or it could just be looked at as training. And that training is so much better than any training you could have put that person through, because now that mistake is top of mind, front and center for every future decision that gets made.
Yep.
It's great training.
And generally, people are harder on themselves than you're ever going to be on them.
Totally. If
And
you hire
so
the right person, for sure.
that is like a weight that they're already carrying. It's like, let me take that off of you and let's
Yeah.
just focus on from this point forward. We know it's never going to happen again.
Right. So you've been with Live Oak now for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
If you were talking to somebody, a peer, somebody that's in the legal space, like you said, law firms all talk to each other. What are other law firms doing? And you had to describe the relationship itself or the people that you work with or just sort of your overwhelming feelings of who we are as a business. And you had to just describe them in words, adjectives. How would you describe us?
I mean, truly a business partner. I mean, we throw around that terminology now instead of saying a vendor or
Yeah.
a client or whatever, but more of a partnership role than we've ever had with any other type of secondary support or outsourced group. Knowing that y'all, you have our back, you look out for our best interest, you're looking ahead for what's coming. So just adjective. Forward thinking.
That's good. You can pull that back to some descriptive words.
But I mean, yeah, y'all are just, like a true partner in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
Knowing that I've got, several people have asked me, like, why work with a group like Live Oak as opposed to either another IT group or a larger IT group or whatever. There is nothing better than knowing if we get into a situation, if our system is hacked, if we get through, which we have been through that experience, if something major catastrophic happened, I could get you on the phone in 2 seconds. I get someone else on the team on the phone in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I don't have to go through some automated system and get put in a queue and submit a ticket when we've got a crisis going on in the office. So knowing that y'all are that for us, that you've got us if we really end up in a situation, it's safety, right? Yeah. It's a safety net.
Some kind of a backstop there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But y'all are also, attorneys are incredibly demanding. They work 24/7 around the clock. Nights and weekends, they don't turn it off. And y'all have just always been there to support us on a ticketing level with the little stuff, but also any big initiatives that we want to roll out. Updates, software, moving to, we're getting ready to completely get rid of servers. When we built out a big, beautiful server room when we first moved into the space, and now it's going to just be empty.
It'll make a great storage
with
closet.
a mini split to keep it cold.
It'll make a great storage closet. All right, so we've got probably 10 minutes left.
Okay.
What's something about you, either personally or professionally, that the people that work with you would be surprised by?
I don't really care about the law.
As a professional.
I am really unique in that I am not the kind of person who went looking to work in a law firm. 95% of the people that work in a law firm set out to do that. They are the kind of people that want to work in law and be around changing the law and changing people's lives from a legal perspective, protecting them from a legal perspective. And that's everybody. Our paralegals, certainly, professional, our legal assistants, they all want to work in a law firm. That was never it for me. A lot of the things that people get excited about, the prestige of working for a law firm or the clientele that you have in sometimes can be kind of exciting. It never really, none of that mattered to me. All I cared about was the fact that it was this group of people that, again, like had every right to act superior, but they never chose that path. And so the only reason I'm in legal is because I work with the people that I do. It has nothing to do with the fact that they're attorneys or that we practice law.
So that's not a common characteristic in law firms.
It's not.
You're at a unique firm.
Yeah. And I have a healthy appreciation for law, certainly, and following the law and abiding by the law.
You just said you didn't care about
writing
the law.
policy and procedure, but like working in a law firm, I don't know. That was never important to me.
Yeah. I got you. So post Tina's life in law firm management, what are you going to be doing? What does retirement look like for you?
I don't know yet. A whole lot of nonprofit work, probably. we have kind of renamed our property the Terrian Sanctuary. And I have a lot of ideas about eventually running some type of like, you know, escape, retreat center, healing place for people.
That's cool.
I don't know. I've always
Out
played
there at your
around
property? Or
Out
just
at-
doing something separately?
on our property. On our
a cool idea.
property. You know, maybe like people come for a weekend and it's truly like a place to go well, and to have some kind of person usher them through the process of just meditation and taking nature walks and kind of reconnecting with those things.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know what the future involves. I think I will do a lot of like just spending time with nature and animals and plants, and probably more
Humans
nature,
when necessary.
less people.
Humans only when necessary. Yeah, that's good. Okay, I have one more question.
Yep.
Talk about, we'll go back into the business mode for a second. AI. Technology evolving, right? AI just tends to be the bleeding edge of what people talk about
Yep.
right now. Are you looking at AI and how it applies to the business? Are you already using tools?
Yes. Yes.
How
and yes.
has it changed how you're doing business currently? And then where are you forecasting it going in the future?
So
the extent
I'm
it's
lucky
changed.
that our firm is also very, very interested in staying up and staying current. A lot of firms get kind of stodgy and old. And they don't want to make a bunch of changes. We are about like efficiency, new products, what's out there, what are people using, how can we be better, faster, more efficient. Part of that is our model. We don't charge as much as a lot of bigger firms do. We provide the quality of legal work, but we don't, it's not necessarily the same associated cost. So we're always looking at ways to save money. We developed an AI committee probably a year ago. And it was not just the buzz that was starting to happen in media, but also our clients. And our clients coming to us saying, are y'all prepared for this? We represent some pretty heavy hitters that are currently in the AI field. That has also spurred our need to make sure that we are staying as much on top of this as we can. I have taken the weight off myself of feeling like we need to get ahead of it because it's just impossible. We're already behind, right? But yes, we have rolled out policies on how folks can use some of the AI tools that are out there. We're researching legal specific AI tools. We're looking at one right now that would actually go into our document database, evaluate our own forms and processes, and help us generate new documents. So we could say, we have this standard letter that we send to clients, pull all of the examples of that letter that are in our system and everyone's different ideas and the way they've put these together, and create a really good template for us to use moving forward. We're starting to already apply it to some things like that. I try to use it every day, oddly enough, just to stay on top of things.
Do you? What do you use?
I'm just using ChatGPT.
Okay.
And I don't rely on it for a whole lot of really substantial information, but I use it as almost like an assistant. If I need a second set of eyes on something, I will oftentimes pitch it and say, is there a better way for me to say this? Or can I take, in my case, I'm very wordy, can I take these 2 pages and condense them to 2 paragraphs? How do I say all of this but say it in less space? I've used it a lot for like creative ideas. We're having a staff party. What are some of the new fun activities you can do, or games you can play, or team building things you can do? Sometimes I'll have it review documents for me or help me with an initial draft. Our attorneys are using it quite often as well. We've had to do a lot of work, especially with our younger folks, our brand new attorneys. Make sure that they know they can't rely on anything that it's pulling. We've all seen the news where they've had people that have quoted laws that don't exist in court. That's been... They have argued case law that
That's
literally
real?
does not exist. It's a real thing. It's happened a few
Wow.
times now. A few times. And that's people that are just looking at it as a way to make things, to basically, so they don't have to work as hard.
Right.
I think we're looking at it as, we're going to have to work as hard because we're working with the AI.
Yeah.
And how do we get it to work to our advantage?
So AI doesn't replace attorneys anytime soon.
It doesn't. I think there are some functions that it's going to replace for sure, and we're already seeing some of that in peer firms. They're rolling out their own types of AI or their own types of systems that are able to do things faster, and sort of like a law.com, if you need a standard set of a will or something drafted, you could have it done very quickly. I don't see that impacting our practice
So
anytime
where does
soon.
the attorney fit in the new paradigm? AI tools progress another 2 or 3 years. Obviously, you can't forecast where that goes.
Sure.
But assuming it continues to progress, the power doesn't go out and the internet doesn't go out, they're going to continue to progress.
Right.
What does an attorney 3 years from now look like?
I mean, I think they are going to have to adapt the way they practice. There is going to be still a very heavy advisory component. They are going to need to be advising clients because, like we just talked, you can have all the rules and regulations in the book you want, but there is a human living component to what's happening. And a computer will never address how that is going to impact the human involved. So I think we're always going to have both, but I can see us requiring less people to do a comparable amount or greater amount of work.
Yeah.
So I do think it will make us much more efficient.
I think that's probably very in line with my theory for how it'll impact our business as well.
Yeah.
It's like we exist to be able to translate the technology to the client
Yep.
and explain to them how they'll be able to leverage it. The technology is always changing.
Yep.
When we first started Live Oak, there were a series of conversations I had, but one in particular with the CEO of the company that we talked about before,
Yeah.
which y'all chose before us.
Yeah.
And he told me, man, I don't think that it's a really good time to be getting into outsourced IT because, Microsoft has Office 365 now and people can kind of manage their own stuff. So they won't need us to manage it anymore. And I think people still want the human
They do.
to talk to the robot.
Yep.
Or I'm wrong, and we're
Oh, I mean, I
destined
hope
for
that's
going
true.
out of
I hope
business.
that's true.
Yeah.
Or we are going to be living in a sci-fi movie from the 80s. I mean, it just is, it's happening very fast. But I think we've talked a lot about people are pulling back to the other end of the spectrum too. Like, we wanted all of this technology, and now that it's there and in our faces, it's a little overwhelming and a little scary. And I think people kind of dial back just a little bit to a more reasonable level. I mean, we are not at a place where, despite whatever Elon Musk says, we are not in a place where we're going to have robots doing all of our work at home. I mean, it's just not, we're not there yet.
I think people have realized that the more they've incorporated technology in their lives, the less, maybe the better they feel about it when they turn it all off.
Yeah.
It's like you can tell there's a distinction between how I feel when I've been looking at a screen all day
Yep.
and how I feel when I've had my hands in the dirt working in my garden all day. And it's not applied to
As
everybody.
long as we are improving quality of life, that
Yeah.
to me, so like if the technology is able to improve our quality of life, if we're able to get what used to be 60 hours of work done in a 20-hour work week, and we have the additional 40 hours to do things that just feed our soul, then that is amazing.
Agreed.
I don't think that there's anything that will replace human beings. I mean, there's just not.
Yeah, tend to agree. Tina, I appreciate very much our friendship. I do, and we talked about this a bunch. We've done quarterly, semi-annual, somewhere in there, coffee meetings just to get together and stay in touch with each other. And the uniqueness of our friendship is something special to me.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's the business component to it. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking. But the personal element of our friendship has it's meant a lot to me, and it's meant a lot to our business. So thanks for agreeing to do this and be the first.
I knew you were going to do great things. It's
great.
exciting. I think it's fun for me to watch y'all grow because it's sort of like, I mean, I peripherally get to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And just see it happening for you. It's as exciting for me to watch it happen to you as
Yeah.
it is maybe for you to experience. It's
I
just
appreciate that.
seeing the success and really like the caliber of people that you've brought in, especially like in your leadership roles. You know, it all just speaks to who you are and what kind of business you're trying to run. So I hope there are more IT groups like Live Oak that embrace just, I don't know, some robotic AI function.
Yeah. Well, me too. Thanks again.
Yeah, of course.
All right. That's it. We did it.
We did it.
We got plenty in there.